Hey everybody, welcome back to HemingwayLand.com, your source for quality, affordable land in the state of New Mexico. Got another one of these properties out in Socorro County, free of planning and zoning restrictions. That tends to appeal to a lot of our buyers. If you're here on the channel, this may be one that appeals to you. Let's find out. This is reference number SCNM-7168, located in Socorro County, New Mexico. This is a 1-acre lot in the Rio Grande Estates subdivision. And this 1-acre lot, as you saw up top, is priced at $1,500. Let's pull this up on a map, show you guys exactly where this is, then we'll get into some specifics here. Down here on our listing page, as with all of our properties, we have GPS coordinates. Click these, it'll bring it up on Google Maps. Unlike our other properties, we only have the center point and not the corner points. Reason why will be explained later. For now, however, let's pull this up here on Google Maps, show you guys exactly where this is. So, this particular property is, tell you what, let's actually pull back first and talk about the subdivision and this part of New Mexico. So, as noted, this property sits in Socorro County. For you guys who are unfamiliar with it, Albuquerque's up here in the north central part of the state. This property is about 40 miles south of that. If we right-click and measure distance, we can see that it is, about 40 miles as the crow flies. So, with the drive time going up the I-25, it's probably something similar to about 40 minutes to get up there. You're probably doing about 70, 75 the whole time. But basically, you're right here within the I-25 corridor, so easy commutes into nearby Albuquerque. It should also be noted that along the I-25 to the south, you are roughly 90 miles north of Elephant Butte Lake State Park. For those who are unfamiliar, Elephant Butte Lake, of course, is the largest body of water in the state of New Mexico. So you're pretty close down here to this great area where you can go swimming and boating and camping and RVing, etc. You can go rent some boats down there or bring your own. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever the case, this specific property we're going to talk about today sits in the Rio Grande Estates subdivision. Rio Grande Estates is one of these areas that roughly about the size of what I'm outlining here on the map. It was one of these that was bought up by a developer back in the 60s, chopped up into a whole bunch of 1-acre lots. Literally the whole subdivision is 1-acre lots, and resold to a number of owners. A couple of benefits here with this subdivision. Number one, it's one of these developers who, whether they had the foresight or they just lucked out, chopped everything up into 1-acre lots and not smaller than that. There are subdivisions, particularly up here in Valencia County, in this area, where everything was chopped up into 1/4 and 1/2-acre lots, and much of that land is largely useless because of different uniform environmental code that became law in New Mexico in the 1970s, was adapted by numerous counties, as well as then some zoning law that sort of prohibits a lot of things from being built on that unless it has larger acreage, and of course nobody does. Down here in Socorro County, this Rio Grande State subdivision, however, you will not suffer that fate. Each of these properties is at least 1 acre in size, and as those of you who follow the channel know, when you're out here in rural quote-unquote undeveloped portions of New Mexico, as long as you have more than 3/4 of an acre, you could put a septic, you could put a well on the property. There'll be enough distance between the two that environmental concerns will not be a concern. And blah, 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 you can build whatever you want. Additionally, down here in Socorro County, you can build whatever you want because they have no planning zoning ordinance and no restrictions on the use of real property. I will, however, return to that topic in just a bit. This specific lot, gang, sits right here off of a, well, it's less a formal road than it is just an area that's flat enough that any car can happen to navigate it and get out here. Property sits roughly like this, and as you can see, there are power lines running along this. I'm calling it a road for purposes of conversation. There are power lines that are running throughout this area over here. So power at the lot line of the property. If we go to map view here, you are not going to see a plat overlay. So what I'm going to do is direct you back to the listing page down here. We've got a sort of representation, Google Earth representation of general size, shape, location of this property. And we also have the plat map, the large plat map, and then the zoomed in plat map here on this. As noted, this quote-unquote road is called Gerardo, Gerardo Avenue, at least on the plat map. That is what it's called. So that is where this property is located. Additionally, we have some photos here in the gallery. It'll give you a good sense. Number one, the property is in Unit 1. Unit 1 is one of the units that sits closest to the highway. So you've got the 60 right here. Obviously, the 60 is going to be paved, but the turnoff right here is a very well-maintained road. And then you're going to take this out just a little bit into the subdivision from Here we go. From the 60, you're taking this road up here and then eventually just making your way out to the property. So this whole road right here, very well maintained, very easy to drive. And then as you go through the photos here, you'll get a sense of exactly what Gerardo Ave looks like at this point in time. So as noted, the whole subdivision is a legally platted subdivision. So each one of these lots has legal access. You're not going to have to cross anyone else's private property to get to yours. That being said, some roads are better defined than others. This would be one that is not well defined. What my photographer reported, however, is that he didn't have any difficulty getting from, the well-maintained main road out to this. It's pretty flat area, pretty arid climate, so there's not a lot that's overgrowing here on these roads, causing driving or access to be difficult. So, point being, this is what the property looks like. This also is a notable property out here in Rio Grande Estates, not only because it has this sort of power lines running up and down this, road, but because property has a bit of a rise to it. Most of the land out here is pretty flat. This one, however, has a little bit of a slope to it, which is nice. You'll have, a little bit better views than some of your neighbors would have if you elect to build out here on this property. Some views of the nearby Manzano Mountains, etc. But you've also got enough flat areas of the property that it should not be that difficult to come out here and just park whatever you want, whether that's an RV or a, camper or something like that, a mobile home, or to actually come out here and start building something. Building something like a tiny home or a shipping container home or just a regular, single family residential. What you could probably see in the background of some of these photos is that this is a, I don't want to call it a residential area, but it's certainly an area that's got a little bit of development in it. People have built some things out there. If we go back to Google Maps and kind of zoom in on this, you can see that within very close proximity of the subject property right here, you've got some sort of structure out here. People have built here, etc. And nearby right here, there's something parked out there. And of course, all of that is a lot easier when you have, power lines running through this area that you do. All of Rio Grande Estates is not serviced by utilities, but the closer you get down here to the highway, you will find that. So this is one of these properties that benefits from it. If it was a property that I was selling away up here, it would not have that same advantage. So, etc. I will let you guys scroll through the rest of these photos on your own time, but as you can see, it's a picturesque area surrounded by the Manzano Mountains, some flat areas, but also that rise in the land that I was talking about earlier. So you may have some better views out here. One thing I want to focus on with this property, as we talk about in the headline, free of planning and zoning restrictions, I want to just specify and get into some detail on that. If you go to what passes as a website in Socorro County, it's their Socorro County Planning and Zoning website. If you click on this, it's going to bring up their zoning and permitting website. And I feel like they wrote this just because they were sick of answering the question. But it says here, quote, Socorro County does not have a zoning or permitting ordinance. At this time, there are no county regulations or restrictions on the use of real property, yada, yada, yada. So again, what that means is that this is the kind of area of New Mexico where you can do things that you can't do in other parts of the state. I always talk about tiny homes, shipping container homes, things like that, but just taking a mobile home out there and not having a permanent foundation on it is likely something that you can do. I'm not intimately familiar with building codes in New Mexico, but I've seen it in enough places to assume that it's not mandatory. Additionally, if you just want to go live out of an RV, go camp out here, you're going to be able to do that. We have a lot of customers here at Hemingway Land who are truckers. They drive cross country all the time. Some of them are just looking for rural pieces of land where they can park their truck when they're going cross country. So if you frequently find yourself going north-south on the 25 or east-west along the 60, this may be a good plot of land for you. It should be mentioned, I was talking about earlier the proximity not only to Albuquerque, but also to Elephant Butte down in the south. It should also be noted that the nearest town to this property would be nearby Belen. This is where you're going to go for groceries and supplies. And if we kind of zoom in here on the map, you'll see it's a pretty built-up area. So you're going to have access here to, as I said, grocery supplies, restaurants, quote-unquote nightlife, whatever the nightlife is in Belen, as well as just stores, amenities, things like that. If you're coming out here to build, Belen is going to be where the nearest hardware store is. Super Walmarts are in nearby Socorro, the city of Socorro, as well as Los Lunas. So you'll have easy access to those as well if you do elect to start building out here. It's just going to be a quick drive up the highway. Should also be noted, sometimes these properties are good. We have a lot of buyers who live in Albuquerque. They don't mind that commute. They want to come out here, start building a life on a piece of land that they will own where their rent is not going to go up every month. That's another one of the benefits out here. If you don't like driving, if you hate being on the 25, if you don't want to fight traffic, it should also be noted that the nearest Rio Metro station is here nearby Berlin. Just hop on the train in the morning. You'll be up in Albuquerque. Lickety split. Blah, blah, blah. A couple of the things I just want to point out here on the listing page, guys. If you're considering buying this property, if this is something that does appeal to you, here are some resources that may be helpful. Number one, PNM is the local utility that services this area. Click on that. It's going to bring up their website. Hello, right here. It's always a good idea to reach out to the local utilities out there. If you're not going to go with solar, if you do want to get hooked up to the grid, reach out to these people and just ask them, say, hey, I'm buying some land north of the 60 in Socorro County. You guys have got a power line out there. It's on the property itself. Just wondering what it's going to cost for me to get hooked up. It's always good to have those conversations with the utilities in advance. Additionally, it should also be noted we have a link here, as we do on all of our listing pages, to the Office of the New Mexico State Engineer. This is the entity within New Mexico that's responsible for permitting all residential and commercial wells. Hey, there we go. Wells throughout the state. So if you want to reach out and talk to them about what you have to do to get permitted, additionally, we also have some links here as far as well drilling info, permit applications. Click on those. You'll learn more about that process. I find it's normally better to talk to well drillers who are in that local area, who can talk specifics about what the water table likely is, how much they're probably going to have to, how far they're probably going to have to drill down, and what that's going to cost on a price per foot basis. Blah, blah, blah. So these are some helpful links that will help you do research on this property and figuring out, realistically what it will cost to actually start building out here or actually start living out here. If your whole desire is just to have a place that you could go camping, place you could just hang out on the weekends, this is not going to be a bad bet for you. But if your goal is to start building on it, these are good resources to have. Anyway, so one thing I just want to talk about here, I mentioned this at the start of the video, GPS coordinates. Typically on all of our properties, and we actually write a little note about this up here, on all of our properties we have software that tells us the exact, or roughly exact corner points and center point of the property. Socorro County is one of the few counties in the country that does not interface with that software and does not provide that information. So in order to get the coordinates that we have here on the listing page, we always reach out to the Socorro County GIS office and we ask them, Unit 1, Block 35, Lot 17, could you give me a GPS coordinate for that? And they'll give us something, and then we'll kind of compare and contrast it off the map and see if that looks about right, and usually it does. Point being, it's entirely possible that they gave us a coordinate that puts us here. Maybe they gave us a coordinate that's actually here. Maybe it's 100 yards down the road. I don't know. As I recommend with all my buyers, if you're going to buy land from us and your intention particularly is to start building on that property, you're going to want to get it surveyed by a professional surveyor. Even when we're able to provide corner points for the property, those are rough approximations, and you always have the disconnect of a one-dimensional map on a three-dimensional globe. There's a further disconnect when you're talking to Socorro County government and you're hoping that they're giving you reliable information. As noted, we check these coordinates. They look, basically correct based on the map, based on where the roads are on the map. But that being said, there's a good chance that they're not the most precise. So again, if your intention is, hey, great, I'm going to go buy this land, I'm going to start building out there, put up a fence, something like that, you want to know where your chunk of dirt ends and their neighbor's chunk of dirt begins. So it's always good to sort of vet that information. So the GPS coordinates, as always, are just a kind of guide, and they're even more of a sort of loose guide when they're coming from the county itself, as opposed to from the software, which we rely on a lot more for accuracy. Blah, blah, blah. With all that said, guys, if you are interested in purchasing this property, it's very easy to do. Come up here, click the Buy Now button. It's going to take you to a secure checkout page here on the website. We're going to ask you for a few pieces of information for the new deed. What name or names do you want on the property? Tax address, where's Socorro County going to send their annual $20 bill? By the way, this is the other thing I forgot to mention about this property. Low taxes. Another advantage of this, you pay $10 in May, $10 in November. You're good for the year. Whatever the case, enter that information, agree to our terms of service, click next. On the next page, we will ask you for credit or debit card information, $1,500 plus a $150 doc prep fee, and we deed the property into your name. Should be noted, we are the owners of this land. Once you give us money, as far as we are concerned, you are the new owner of the land. Go out there, begin to do whatever you like, whatever your little heart desires. Start building, start camping. start surveying, etc. That being said, it's going to be a couple weeks before you're going to have a recorded deed in your hands. The process is going to be you give us the money, we're going to write up a new deed within 24 hours. We will have that to you in email along with some supplemental documentation. Once you say that, yes, we spelled your name and your husband's name or your wife's name or your kids' names correctly, we got the right address, we're going to say, fantastic. We'll autograph it, notarize it, and mail it off to Socorro County to be recorded. They will record it and they will forward it on to you. So from start to finish will be roughly 3 weeks before you have that in your hands. But as noted, once you give us the money, as far as we're concerned, you are the new owner. Anyway, guys, hope this was informative. If you have any additional questions, leave a comment here on YouTube. Shoot us an email, support@hemingwayland.com, or give us a call. Give us a call, guys. 702-919-7170. We will do our best to answer any questions that you have. With all that said, thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.